Wonderful people. Hello. Thank you for joining me on the Antidote. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Burden. I founded and run a little thing called Lyric Cultural Coaching, which just focuses on building connection and community. And I'm blessed to do that. I'm also blessed to be able to hold this space on Thursday nights. I try to do this on Thursday nights, called the Antidote, where we talk about what's happening in the world and ask the questions that bring us closer together, that ideally move us closer to healing. And tonight is no exception. I got two amazing guests who are going to talk about the power of art. Please jump in the chat. I know it takes a little second for the algorithm to let people know we're live. We are on YouTube and Instagram, so make sure you jump on there. We're taking questions. Let us know where you're at in the chat. Share it. You know, all the things the algorithm loves, because unfortunately that's the world we live in. And the more that you interact with me, the more that I get to interact with people and interact with you. And so we love that. Thank you for being here. Checking in from Boston. Let's go. Welcome, Boston. Boston is a cool place. So yeah, and if you have any questions, we're going to take those, I promise. I don't want to take up too much time because we got to get out of here right at 9 o'clock Eastern tonight. And so we're going to start as we always do, talking about some of the stuff that's happening in the world. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about, because y'all know I'm from Minneapolis, Jake Lang continues to show up to the city and get dog walked. And if I could, he once again, after the verdict of Shiloh Hendricks, who was found guilty for disorderly conduct for racially slurring a young child, and got a $1,000 fine, which is like nothing because she made like $1 million on a GoFundMe. Jake Lang decided he was going to go antagonize the city, held a N-word rally. I know if you're like, wait a minute, that sounds absurd. You would be correct, because it is absolutely absurd. But he showed up and the city showed up, and he got escorted out. Sadly, though, it looks like the police were interacting and collaborating with his security. They had a car driving on the city hall sidewalk. Y'all know, down there by the plaza. I was actually in the city on Saturday. I didn't get a chance to go down there. I had to get back to Atlanta. But it was cool to see people show up. I know there's been a conversation about, should we continue to platform this dude or will he go away? I'm kind of the mind that it matters when people show up like that, and we should show up and say that they're not welcome. So yeah, big up to Minneapolis. I think sometimes the way that we cure our diseases and come together is by taking a firm stance and saying that is just unacceptable here, and we are not going for it. So shout out to Minneapolis. Oh, there we go. Here's my the little banner wasn't showing up. Shout out to Minneapolis. Appreciate you. Always proud to be there. In more news, Angela Nixon wins the Florida primary. This was a surprise. Surprise, kind of. If you were paying attention, not really though. Progressives been doing their thing all over the country, which is an organizer from the people. Embrace the progressive platform, DSA affiliated. Talking about putting money in our pockets, making our material reality match how much wealth we have and produce for these folks in this country. And so shout out to everybody in Angie Nixon's campaign. Looking forward to seeing you in Congress and just demonstrating the power of the people. Again, one of the ways that we can resist and show that we are not beaten, we are not broken, is to engage in things like this, engaging in with a clear head around electoral politics and a refusal to compromise, which also brings us to well, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but one of the things that was going on in the country was AOC and kind of this retreat. This like, oh, woke one was crazy. I talked a little bit about that on social media and had some trolls in the comments. Please don't do that. Don't retreat. We got a lot, and I'm going to talk to our guests today about the role of art in that. But it does make me ask the question: do we understand socialism with the rise of DSA candidates and even some candidates that aren't affiliated with DSA are actually say they're not socialist, how we attach that label to them. First, I'm a history teacher, so I want to be very clear. That is a old and tired tactic from folks who want to resist changes to say, oh, they're communists, they're socialists. Also, why they do that is because we don't actually collectively understand what those terms mean. And so again, I made a post about this, and it blew up on Instagram. I think it's got over like 200 comments. Normally I'm not that popular, so I don't get that type of traction. But the number of people in there that are blatantly just misrepresenting what socialism is wild. Here's what I want to say about this as we're watching candidates gain traction and the DSA gain traction. I want to say that if you believe that our tax dollars should go to providing for the common good, things like Medicare for all, housing, so our unhoused brothers and sisters can be taken care of, schools, roads, things like that, you might be a socialist, and that is okay. Also, I want to say to my DSA folks, particularly those folks that look like me, because the city I'm from, Minneapolis, we get a lot of them. That does not mean that you get a pass to not think about race, to not think about colonialism, to not think about the settler colonial state. Socialism, and what brings me peace about my understanding of socialism is it's very much aligned with indigenous beliefs across the world that we are stewards of creation and should act as such, not owners of it. And if that don't feel right in your soul, man, I don't know what house of worship or what creator you need to talk to, but holler at me, because we can try to work that out, and I can put you in touch with some people. But yeah, it does, just because you're a socialist or an anarchist or a communist does not mean you don't got to think about your identity. And just because people are a socialist or an anarchist or a communist does not mean they're not thinking about identity. We gotta be better at that, because that coalition and the fight for economic and racial justice is a powerful one that I don't want to see get splintered by a misunderstanding of identity politics. Speaking of identity politics, let's move to the next one I want to talk about. There's an update in the Carmelo Anthony case. The judge was dismissed. If you watch this show, we talked about the Carmelo Anthony case. For those of you that might not know, he's a young man in Texas outside of Dallas, and he had an altercation with a white student, classmate of his named Austin Metcalf, which tragically ended in the death of Austin Metcalf. I don't celebrate death for anybody. Carmelo Anthony maintained that it was self-defense. And if you've been alive in the last decade, 2 decades, you know that self-defense claims, no matter how odious, are taken pretty seriously when white folks kill brown folks. But this was the inverse of that, and it was not taken very seriously. Carmelo Anthony was found guilty. Turns out there was a gentleman's agreement between the prosecution and the defense where they wouldn't talk about the background of the young people, which is a big deal because Carmelo Anthony was acting, according to him, based off the history of Austin Metcalf and his racist behavior. And it turns out there is a whole bunch of racist behavior in Austin Metcalf's history. Things that are uplifting the KKK, Nazis, all kinds of stuff that you would expect, pictures with guns, all that. Definitely painted a very different picture than what came out in the trial. The defense, so Carmelo Anthony's lawyers did ask for dismissal and a new trial. It was denied. They are now moving on to the appeals court, 5th Circuit in Dallas. So watch out for that. Another case that I want to make sure we talk about, even though there's not a whole lot of new stuff, we are still watching and paying attention to Nolan Wells. You don't just go out on a boat in a lake with 4 white boys and you're the only one dead and there not be some hard questions. Only one that doesn't come back and your phone made it back. We got to ask some questions. We got to demand answers. And then, of course, before we get to our guests, I saved this one for last because it segues well into our conversation, but also because it's probably the most recent and on your head. and heart. Dolly Parton joined the Ancestors. So I remember the first time I heard about Dolly Parton, I remember being like, oh, she's, you know, a country singer, white girl, all this. I wasn't really that interested. And then I found out just how bomb Dolly Parton really was, how subversive Jolene was, how 9 to 5 and her class consciousness. And she continued to demonstrate that all the way up until the day that she died. She was talking about literacy, talking about connecting to people, advocating for humanity, and for us to just be better to each other. Couldn't think of a better example of somebody who represents the antidote and everything that we mean when we say that about connection and about just taking care of each other. Man, she talked about her dad being one of the smartest people she's ever met, but because he couldn't read, limiting the opportunities that he had growing up in Appalachia, no running water, all things. Like, Dolly Parton is a real one. If you don't know about Dolly Parton, you only see, you know, the sort of the aesthetic that she put out, which even that was a political statement. It wasn't. You really got to get on it. You really got to get on it. So peace to Dolly Parton. Peace to everybody who is mourning the loss. We lost a real one, but gained a real one on the other side, and I believe in that. Which is a great segue to my two guests tonight. I'm so excited for this, y'all. I just said a lot of words really fast because I want to shut the hell up and let them talk. I'm going to introduce one of my dear, she is now family, an elder to me, somebody that I can call, and she knows she can side click me if it's too much and just get advice and talk and all that. Met her through doing this work, and it's just been, we connected right away. She is everything that's good in the space and in the world. Welcome to the Antidote, Anika Nailah. And then our second guest, who we were just talking before we went live, I've seen in Minneapolis doing his thing for years, and we've never shared a stage. We never did events, but we'd be at the events together, and I knew of him. We'd be in our circles where we're very close. But he has been out here doing his thing since from the south side of Minneapolis, since the Dinky Towner and the Nomad, and now he tours the world as a water protector, making just bomb-ass music, raising the consciousness. This is Rafael Gonzalez, aka Tufawon. Welcome, Tufawon, to the show. What's up, y'all? How are you? Thank you for being here.
Doing well.
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I'm gonna start with, well, first taking this off so that people can see y'all, not Dolly Parton joins the Ancestors. I want to just start by giving y'all a chance to share a little bit about yourself. And so, Anika, I'll ask you to start. Just give I shared a little bit about how we know each other, but tell people who you are.
All right. First, I'd be remiss if I didn't say I'm coming from the unceded lands of the Nipmuc, Kamtuk, and the Wampanoag folks who we're still here. My ancestry is Afro-Indigenous. I was raised as African-American, but I also have lineage with the Pocasset Wampanoag folks of the Pokanoket Nation. And work I've been doing, well, when I was a kid, I didn't see it as work. It was just fun, but I call it work now, even though it's still fun, is the world of words, writing, literacy. I'm a poet. I'm an author. I've worked with young people to help them write, publish, and sell their own books. And, I grew up in a family, as many of us brown and black folks do, where, we dance with our babies, like we're always trying to transfer that joy to them that we feel in our heart, that art is, and music and all of that is. And so I do that work. I do some of the work with Ryan in workplaces, dealing with issues about building community and inclusion and belonging. I'm also working on a TV series pilot, which maybe I'll talk about later. And I am still writing poetry. And that's pretty much it for now. And just connecting with folks where I am and trying to have enough generosity of spirit within myself that I can be there for people when people are in a whole different space where they think we're going to hell in a handbasket. I'm not going there. That's me.
Oh, that's real. Thank you, Anika. 2 for 1, Raf. Yeah, tell us. Oh, hold on. Here we go. Hit the wrong one. There you go. Tell us about yourself.
I'm guessing that's my turn. Anika, it's very awesome to meet you. Honored to be here. And being on the Antidote. Ryan, it's thank you for hitting us up to do this. My name is Tufawon, Raphael or Rafa. Chante washte nape chuzapi magaju khaga imaki yapido. I'm Dakota and Boricua. I'm from the south side of Minneapolis, and I am a rapper, singer, songwriter, and an active teaching artist. And I'm also very involved on the ground in my community. And I like to say that I just respond. I respond when there's injustice that happens. Sometimes it happens on your front lawn, and that's a part of the nature of being from Minneapolis. It's been a very, very active place. And this goes all the way back to my ancestors back in 1862 who fought against the United States government in war. So the resistance has been very, very active here for a long time. The spirit of resistance and pushing back against settler colonialism. Yeah, in a nutshell, that's who I am. I love making music and I love traveling to Native communities with my music curriculum and making full original songs with Native youth across Turtle Island, and and all that. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the things that when I was thinking about doing this show, how I want to talk about art.
And Ryan, I can't hear you. I think you might have to turn your mic on.
Oh no. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me, Anika?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm not getting anything from you. Let me
We're gonna figure that technical issue out. As I was saying, one of the things that why I wanted to bring both of you together is y'all have been using art as education, working with young people. Rap's gonna come right back, and so that to me is how art. When I think about how art has impacted me, it was always a tool for education. It was a way to connect people across difference. Here we go. Rafa's back. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, there we go. I was saying one of the things that excited me about bringing you two together is that you both use art as education. Like literally in the classroom, in the institution of schools, you have experience doing that, but also outside of it. And I love the way that your work, and I hope my work at some level was able to transcend like the border, the boundaries of like the institution of schools, and really highlight how learning and knowledge and the creation of knowledge and wisdom gets passed down through art, and how powerful that can be. And so I would love to hear you both talk a little bit about how art has impacted your life. And maybe Anika, let's start with you.
Okay. How art has impacted my life. I grew up in a household where, like I said before, words were very important. I had the privilege of having parents who were literate in English as their first language and being read to by my mom, and just always being intrigued by the mystery and the power of words, and how energy could be captured in a book. And even though I couldn't read and I didn't know what the marks were on the page, I knew that there was magic in that space, that my mom could look at this thing called a book, and she could say things, and pictures would come in my mind, and she'd close the book, and the next night she'd open the book, and those pictures would still be there, and all of that energy would be in that space. And it was something that compelled me really early, that there was power in words, and there was power in visuals. And I have to say, art, it saved my life many times. We grew up in a neighborhood in Long Island in the 60s where we were the only Black family. And, this was during the time of, the Black poetry movement. It was all about being able to express yourself, similar to like the rap movement now. back then for us, it was the Black poetry movement, and everybody was saying some of the things that I was living as a young kid in school. And so it was like there was this other place you could go. There was a place that you could go to welcome yourself back to yourself that felt safe, you know. And I can remember going to those schools, you know, being the only one in my class, and just hating the space where I knew I wasn't wanted and I wasn't cared for and loved. And it was that other place that I could go to that led me down a different path, because it could have turned out real different for me. You know, I could have because the energy has to go somewhere. You know, I could have, you know, gone into substance abuse. I could have gone into, you know, crime. I could have done all those things, but the art is what saved me, because it allowed me to realize the power that I had within, and that meant something, that it came from somewhere and it meant something, and it was to be shared, and it was me coming back into my own humanity. So for me, definitely it saved my life and continues to do so.
That's super powerful. Super powerful. Rafa, how about you? How do you see, how's art impacted your life?
Well, you know, similar to what, you know, Anika is saying, my experience with art, you know, I've been around it my entire life, but it has definitely at a really young age changed the trajectory of my life. I could have I grew up in an environment, you know, where back during these times, you know, it was, Minneapolis was labeled Murderapolis. You know, I have a lot of family members who joined gangs, especially a lot of the men in my family, my dad, my uncle, you know, just a lot of family members. And I probably likely would have joined a gang, but the arts were there and really held me, and I was able to express myself in an environment that I felt was, you know, was safe. Ever since I was like a little kid, you know, like I've been messing around with music. Luckily enough, I went to Seward Montessori growing up, Southside, and you know, we had choir and band. I played the trumpet and the clarinet, and then later on, when I was in high school, you know, the Minneapolis hip hop scene was vibrant, and there were older pioneering hip hop artists who really laid out a foundation for the younger generation coming in to have you know, support network and a artist infrastructure, if you will, to where, you know, we were able to make music. There was a lot of older homies who were making beats, a lot of older homies who were already writing freestyles. Freestyle ciphers were happening regularly in high school. You know, moving on to writing actual songs and joining my rap group Illuminous 3 back then, and, you know, playing shows. We had so many mentors who just, you know, took us under their wings and really showed us how to do it. And, you know, mentorship is really important. And so from then I was able to sustain a career out of it. I've been able to travel all over the world, you know, using this intersection between hip hop and you know, music and activism as a way to help change my life and use it to impact the lives of others, especially in the most marginalized, you know, communities. And so I had really good mentors growing up, and I feel like I would be doing a huge disservice to my people if I didn't give back in that same way. And so, yeah, I mean, it changed me and impacted me in so many profound ways. I mean, that's just to name a few, really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you both sharing. I got a question that y'all were not prepared for, that I just thought about, that I'm really interested, because I realized we implied it and I didn't say it, but you are both artists, very talented, very gifted artists. We are lucky to have you and live at the same time as you, but you create different types of art, right? Anika, you are an author. You write poems, and there's some overlap, but like poems and books. and Rafa, you are creating music. You're doing beats. You know, especially now, like I've seen your artistry expand, right, into different types of music, different types of stuff. Talk to us a little bit about how did you know what type of art you wanted to create? How did you know that? How were you drawn to the written word, Anika? How were you drawn to music? Not whoever wants to go first.
I'm gonna let you go first.
I was drawn to music at a really, really young age, especially because, you know, I'm 40 now. And so, you know, I grew up during like the golden era of R&B and hip hop, and, you know, the Black community gifted the world with hip hop, and it's such a huge blessing, right? And when I was a kid, there was just a different caliber of music that was being released at the time. I would watch music videos of my favorite artists, and I'm like, oh man, like Tupac, I'm like, I love this so much. So I had this reverence, this deep reverence for the artists that we were seeing on MTV and on the box and, you know, VH1 and whatever else. And I valued and cherished music so much at such a young age. Can you kind of remind me the question again? I kind of steered off a little bit.
Yeah. How did you know that you were like, no, that's the art I'm gonna make? You know what I mean? Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, totally. And so when I was a kid, I had this curiosity when I would watch the music videos and I would hear the songs on the radio, and I'm like, my biggest questions that would come up for me was, how did they do that? How did they get their voice to be on this like instrumental track? And like, what is it? Like how did they get it to play out of the speakers? Like what was the whole process? I was so clueless, but I was really, really curious. And that started my like journey in music. I mean, at a young age, I was experimenting with a lot of different mediums as far as art. I was very like, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be an animator. And I was like, you know, watching the first X-Men cartoon series, Saturday night cartoons. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's it. And then once I reached, I would say, once I reached high school and I bought my first beat machine, and Brandon all day from Big Quarters, he gave me some lessons and showed me how to sample, and he showed me how to do it. And I joined the Luminous 3. I was like, oh, you know what? This is what I want to do. I don't want to be an animator anymore. So I stopped drawing and all of that. And I was like, nah, I'm fully plugged into music.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Brandon and Zach and Big Quarters, man.
Yes.
Huge, like, whew. Just,
legendary.
Yeah, we gotta talk. We could do a whole show just about Big Quarters. I tell myself one of the things, Anika will know, like my calendar will look crazy and she'll remind me to breathe. And I remember Brandon all day. Anika's the one when I told you it ain't grinding if it don't feel like punishment. That's Big Quarters. So anyway, I don't want to. Yeah, yes. Anika, how did you know you wanted to be a writer?
I don't know. I knew early on that I wanted to write, and I think I have to go back to my mom, giving credit to my mom, because she also was someone who was into writing, and later in life she also became a poet. But words were like playthings. You know, we would play games with words. We would say words, break words into syllables, say them backwards, and see how the sound could make the word over again. I mean, so words were not something that I was intimidated by. I was drawn to them. But actually, when I think about the different mediums and forms in which I've been writing, initially I don't think I was aware as much of the form. Words would just come into my head, and I didn't know where they were going to go. And they would end up usually in a poetry format, sometimes early, because that's the format I was exposed to. As I began to write short stories, I would hear a sentence, you know, and then I'd have to figure out, well, who are you? Like, who's talking? What's going on? You know, and figure out where that would need to go. And I could hear the beginning and I could hear the end, and I'd have to figure out the middle. And that's how I would write the short stories. But the art that I never thought I would be called to was teaching, because I was that kid in the classroom, in the English classroom, when you were asked to write, you know, what was your favorite thing you did in your summer vacation. Oh my God, that's so boring. I would just purposely write something just ridiculous or stupid or fantastic or whatever. So I was always challenging myself against how bored I would be in those spaces. And so I never would think that I would end up myself becoming an English teacher, which I did in New York City high schools. And within that space, you know, I began, I took some theater classes, some improvisation classes in Chelsea section of Manhattan. And then I said, you know, I can do this with kids. And so I started teaching theater, you know, and we ended up doing scene studies, and we were looking at Baraka's Flying Dutchman, and we were doing street theater, and, you know, we put on a play. We did actually did a musical, you know, and this is usually how I approach artistic things. I don't really think about what I'm getting into. I just get excited about, let's go, let's do this. Everybody's here, let's do it. And that's what I would do, you know. And then ultimately, when I moved out of New York and I ended up in Massachusetts, I started thinking about working with young people again in a different way, because I always realized that there weren't enough people telling them how fabulous they were. You know, the level of creativity that they have at that age is so raw and so boundless, but nobody's telling them that that's the good stuff. Everyone's trying to put them in this box, behave, do this, do that, do that. And so I saw an opportunity, because I also read a quote when I was working in a bookstore at the time by Ilan Van Zandt. And she said that if you wanted your own particular success, you had to help somebody else gain that same success. And at that point, I hadn't written a book, and I wanted to write a book. But I thought, why don't I help kids write books? So I went into the housing projects in Somerville, which is a city outside of Boston. And, you know, I kind of made a deal with these kids at this center. And I said, you know, just, you know, come, just check it out, you know, bring a friend. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And they ended up being an organization called Books of Hope, where kids would write whatever they wanted. And they did not self-identify as writers. And most of these kids didn't even read. So it happened the opposite way. When they started writing their own books, then they read each other's books, and then they became readers, and then they were full circle writers, and they were like full authors in the community. We did book signings, and, you know, it was just a whole book culture. They wanted to then teach the little kids, because there was a daycare center. So they started publishing little kids. And then some of them wanted to teach the elders or hear what the elders had to say. So then they wanted to publish the elders. So it was like a really cool thing to be a writer, you know, and that was exciting. And that's when I realized I was supposed to, this wasn't just for me. This was something I was supposed to come through me and share with others and learn from that. And then, you know, the cycle would continue.
That's beautiful. When I think about the number of artists that I've talked to, or my own relationship to art, that piece seems to be such a through line of creating art and being creative as a way to connect, and not something that you can just hoard to yourself. I've never met an artist that is like, I do this for me, right? Like, that came out wrong. They create the art because they have to, right? They don't create it for consumption. They create it for them because it's what brings them joy. It's what makes them feel whole and healthy. But that's never like, that's not where it was supposed to stay. At least not all of it, right? Sometimes it is. Sometimes, you know, I've wrote plenty of poems that are like, that's never nobody will ever hear that. That was for me in the page. That was for me and God, right? And so I'm not suggesting that every piece of art needs to be out in public, but there's always a through line of, this is for community. This is for connection. This is for that. And when I think about the power of art, how I've used it in my classroom, right, was like, that was how people were connected. If I wanted to talk about the Harlem Renaissance, you could read about it in the McGraw-Hill textbook, or you could start to grab some Nikki Giovanni. You could start to, you know what I mean? You could grab the art that came out of there, the Langston Hughes, the things like that, the Zora Neale Hurston, all that. You know, if you wanted to talk about, I remember specifically, Rafa, you'll know him, like, I'm a huge Brother Ali fan. And I remember he had got arrested at an Occupy Homes thing, and I was talking about it, and I put up the video, and like my students could see their neighborhood on there, and they could see all the likes and the comments and stuff, and seeing like, oh dang, art is how this thing that's happening that feels like it's only about me is connecting to people across the planet. And then I saw it's either Slingshots and hip hop or hip hop and Slingshots, I forget, but it was about hip hop in Gaza before it was okay to even talk about Palestine and free Palestine, and and people are. It's more acceptable now, and a lot of that is because of the art that came out, that was coming out about it. People like Immortal Technique, Brother Ali, people like Inez, people like Kalani, who are coming out and saying like, nah, we're, this is what it is. And so I'm wondering, how have y'all seen art create social change? And I think Rafa, you went first. You're leaning in. Whoever wants to go first, it don't matter.
Yeah, I mean, art has been a part of every revolution, of every social, movement that has existed. So it's always been there, right? And I feel like artists, I think it's important for us to engage. I used to kind of guilt trip my fellow artists and be like, yeah, we need to be writing more songs about what's going on. And I've also been kind of reflecting on that lately too, about how, not everybody is really meant to write a political song, and not everyone is necessarily good at it, or that's not necessarily everyone's style. But, my call to my fellow artists has, shifted, and it's more so about, if you have a platform, are you able to use it to impact change, right? Like, you might be an artist that writes vibey, fun songs that just feel good, and there's not too much to the lyrics, but they feel good, and that's what it is. There's a lot of beauty in that, right? But that same artist who doesn't really even know how to write a political song, and that's not their lane, they might be able to use their platform to raise a ton of money during Operation Metro Surge, for example, which I've seen a lot of people do. A lot of artists who weren't necessarily activists or organizers, engaging their community by using their social media platforms and just speaking to the issues and saying, hey, this is where you should bring your money to. Bring it down to the Powwow Grounds coffee shop in Southside Minneapolis that became a mutual aid hub that helped a lot of people, across the Twin Cities metro area. You know what I mean? So I've seen it impact, like on the ground in these different ways. And to me, that was a powerful example. And I'm really proud of a lot of my fellow artists that, stepped outside of their box. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think you brought up such an important point too about I'm with you, and and mine was more, any art that I did create was always pretty explicitly political and all that. That was my lane. And I used to be very, I would say, like, stubborn about that, and chauvinist about that. Like, that was quality art. I didn't want to listen to somebody who was talking about anything other than like solidarity and freedom and struggle, right, and all that. And as I gotten older and I think matured, I'll say matured, I realized like there's so much power in being able to find love in crazy times, right? And being able to just say like, you know what I did today? Or I want to write a poem about my daughter and the way she laughed, right? Like I'm not going to talk about the president or capitalism or white supremacy, right, or none of that. I'm going to talk about my daughter. And I want to talk about walking the Stone Arc Bridge and seeing the falls and hearing the water and the birds. Like that in and of itself was power and was political. And I think and tying that to like what I saw, the movement, how it matured during Metro Surge, where there was really like, yo, whatever lane you can play, whatever it is that you do, we need it right now. Like,
yeah,
and we're valuing it. And I think I hope, I'm excited for what that might do to how folks understand struggle and resistance and their role in like community building. But I don't want to look, I get going, I'm saying too much. Anika, I would love to hear how do you see art creating social change?
I would just say ditto to what both of you have already said. And, you know, when I go back to the example of the artistic community that surfaced in the work that I did in Somerville, for me, so much about art is making a choice, whether it's conscious or not, to be a producer rather than a consumer. You know, when you consume art, and of course art can help you and bring you to healing, that's a different side of it. But when you're actually creating something, and it's something that's very authentic and comes from your heart, just that statement is a statement to yourself about who you are, seeing yourself differently, seeing yourself standing in your own power. And if there are enough people doing that within a particular identity, those people are viewed differently as well. You know, it's about them being able to tell their own story, to be in control of their own narrative. And that's why, you know, when I go back to young people, you know, that's a different culture. There's different questions that they're going to ask that other people are not going to ask. And they're going to ask them in a way, if you open yourself to receive it, that's going to help you change what you think about in terms of how you move in society. And then when it becomes what looks like you know, a particular movement in history, like when you think about the Harlem Renaissance, you know, at that time, some of those people were young people writing and getting their word out there and having their voice be heard. It always makes a change because it's something different. It's not mainstream. It's not what you just, you know, hear what's being pushed or what someone's trying to sell you. It's somebody trying to give you a perspective that's different, and just opening yourself to that, either as the artist doing it or receiving that and hearing that and feeling that, is going to make a change if it's consistent and if there's space that's made for it. So I think that's the beauty of it, that you're making a choice to produce something rather than just consume whatever it is that you're being given, which is usually the mainstream, you know, which doesn't usually include us.
We have generic user, but said my mom made unique Halloween costumes and reimagined clothes handed down from sister to sister. My mom's creativity rubbed off on me, and I pursued fashion in college and in my career. Absolutely. One of the most powerful things I heard was her name is Rebecca Smith. She went by Be Fresh at the time, and she's a dope videographer and media person. And Rafa, I'm sure you know Be Fresh.
Shout out Rebecca, she's amazing.
Man, just so dope. Running Speak MPLS right now, like just so fire. But I had her in my classroom, and I remember she told young people, instead of asking them what they wanted to do, she was like, find something that you're good at that brings you joy, and then figure out how to make money off of it. Like, not the other way, not make money and then try to fit your joy and your skill and your creativity inside of that. She said, go be creative, go figure out what gives you life, and then find out how to make money off of that. And it was one of those moments that will always stay with me, clearly, because I'm talking about it right now. I got lost in the conversation. I didn't even say thank y'all for joining us. Please jump in the chat if you have any questions. Let us know where you're at. We got some people joining us from Boston. We got share how art has impacted you. We got about 13 minutes, 15 minutes. We go a little bit over. Before I ask y'all what the final question, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit, Rafa. Before you joined, Anika was like, "Hey, are we gonna be able to share some art?" So I would love to give y'all the space. I don't know if you got anything you can share. So I'm gonna ask Anika first to share if you're okay sharing a poem.
Sure.
Or what you would like to share. Thank y'all. This is special, y'all. You get a chance. I don't get a chance to have artists on the Antidote actually share their work. So
cool. We're starting a new tradition on the Antidote. Okay.
That's right. This is actually the Antidote. You about to get it right now.
Okay. This poem is dedicated to a pianist who's a dear friend of mine called Ruth Bass Green, and it's called When Ruth Plays. When Ruth plays, angels weep silver rain on roses bowed in exalted meditation, while white purple flowered throats of morning glories of the world vibrate open, drinking in each precious note. When Ruth plays, clouds boldly intertwine, thunder chases sister light, leaving electric footprints across fields of clouds. when Ruth plays. Melody is sunlight gliding neath the skin of trees, bursting leaves into existence. When Ruth plays, shamans dance, mourners hum, preachers lose their tongues to universal language of the song. Grandmothers hold their grandbabies close, stroke their heads, and rock them into wisdom. When Ruth plays, I think, if only the song could rise like trails of dew, streaming sunward above each devastation, loud enough for the killing ones to hear, soft enough for them to let the music in. Just one whole note trembling in the night of our destruction, we would know pain is faced, love is truth, life is lived, one body, one spirit, unafraid to feel the deepest possibilities we have always known when Ruth plays.
Hey, thank you so much, so much. Yeah, if you're in the chat, give it up for Anika. Poetry is one of my favorite things. Rafi, I know I put you on the spot. If you have something, otherwise we could just post a link.
No, I can.
You're there?
Songs. Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me and can you see me?
Can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna do one of my songs off of my most recent EP called Great.
Right. Rafa, I don't know if something happened. We can't hear it now.
It's not letting.
It's not letting you?
Yeah, but maybe I could just do it. I do a little acapella from the song.
Okay. Hey, whatever. I know I put you on the spot, so that yeah.
Yeah. So this one is called Sweetgrass. And it's off my Gradient EP. And yeah, it goes like this. We cruise the land with a clear view. Mom's beaded medallion in the rear view. Road tripping through Turtle Island as I hear tunes blasting some true classics. Backdrop of a mountain looking too massive. A smooth passage and we make our way. Don't acknowledge borders because they keep us separated. And our vision so distorted when we subscribe to the lies. So when I ride with my guys, smudge when I hit a turn. It's medicine I burn because I love the smell of sweetgrass. I love the smell of sweetgrass. I love the smell of sweetgrass. Sitting on my dash. Yeah, cause I love the smell of sweetgrass. I love the smell of sweetgrass. I love the smell of sweetgrass. Sitting on my dash. Yo. Sweetgrass don't grow around here. We see flat cedar and it's so plentiful. I send it to my friends and those that can use it to smudge with, use it to pray with. We get it in abundance. I love this. The many gifts I received throughout my travels, reciprocating the energy, truly how it's meant to be. The more we give, the more blessings that we receive, and it's true. Believing and seeing, and I'm seeing the truth. Speaking to you, I see my own reflection because we're so connected. You casually talking and drop hella lessons. It's so impressive. The role that I play is to hold all the knowledge that you throw my way because you're my T.O. spot, ayy. Because you're my T.O. spot, ayy. Because you're my T.O. spot, ayy. We sit around and just pray. Why? Because I love the smell of sweetgrass. I love the smell of sweetgrass. I love the smell of sweetgrass. Sitting on my dash. Yeah. Cause I love the smell of sweetgrass. I love the smell of sweetgrass. I love the smell of sweetgrass. Sitting on my dash. Na. Yeah, and that song is called Sweetgrass, and it's on my Gradient EP. That's a portion of the song.
Hey,
all right.
Yeah, tell folks where they can support you, support your art, connect it. Anika, where can folks get your book? Rafa, where can they get the 2-for-1, the EPs, all that?
Do we need to put that in the chat, or how does that work?
I will put it. I'll make sure that I link it in the description.
Yeah.
But you should just tell people right now.
AnikaNailah.com.
Yeah. 2-for-1.
Dope. And if you go to 2for1.com, TUFAWON.com, you find everything there. My music is on all the streaming platforms. I also have my most recent single. I have a music video for. It's called "No One Is Illegal." It's speaking to what is going on currently with this whole ICE occupation and pushing back against fascism and all of that. So that's where
Yeah. Shout out. You did that with Nico from Unicorn Riot, right? The video.
I did it with Akichita.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it was in partnership with Unicorn Riot though. So yeah, like big shout out to Unicorn Riot. They've been on the ground, like front line, like doing their thing for hella long at this point. So
yeah,
much love and respect to Unicorn Riot and everything they do.
Yeah. Normally the send out question is what's the antidote, but I'm about to live in what my pops always said is walk the walk, don't talk the talk. And so if I ask y'all that after you just gave us and let us experience what the antidote is, I would be doing a disservice. Y'all, when you watch this, if you're watching now or if you're watching on YouTube, go back, scroll back and rewatch the poem and the song over and over and over again, because that feeling, that's God in you. That's connection. That's the antidote right there. Anika, Rafa, thank you so much for being here. All of y'all, thank you so much for joining the antidote. The solution is us. We all we got, and ain't nobody coming to save us. So this is it. This is what we have. So thank you so much. Enjoy your Thursday night. We'll be back next week, and that's gonna be it for us. Peace, y'all.
Much love. Thank you for having us.
Nice to meet you, 2for1.
Likewise. Nice to meet you, Anika. Blessings.
Blessings. All right.